Ever had one of those bosses who just broke you, not just physically but mentally? Yeah, buckle up because I'm Jace, a 22-year-old working-class guy. And I've got a tale from the trenches of supermarket hell that'll make you want to send your old manager a strongly worded glitter bomb. I left home at 19, fresh-faced and eager, landing a job at a major supermarket chain. For 4 years, I was their go-to guy for all the crap no one else wanted to touch. You know the glamorous stuff. Scrubbing grime off floors at 3 a.m., chasing rogue shopping trolleys across the car park in a downpour, lugging absurdly heavy boxes of canned goods until my spine screamed. It was honest work, and I was determined to make it work, even if my body increasingly disagreed. I mean seriously, this place put me through the ringer. First, I broke a few bones in my foot during a late-night cleaning shift. Nasty fall. A few months later, chemical burns on my hands from some industrial-strength floor cleaner because apparently proper safety gear was a suggestion, not a requirement. Then, the grand finale. I threw my back out lifting a pallet of dog food that clearly weighed more than a small car. Each time I'd just grit my teeth, pop some painkillers, and drag myself back in. Couldn't afford to take time off, not with rent and bills looming. Management, they barely blinked. Tough break, Jace. Can you still lift that crate? Eventually, even my boundless determination started to wear thin. I was done being a human workhorse, so I put in my 2 weeks' notice, sent multiple emails, spoke to HR, formally resigned. But my manager, John, was a special kind of oblivious. The man couldn't organize a piss-up in a brewery, let alone manage a busy supermarket. During my notice period, he refused to help out when things got swamped, leaving me the leaving guy to pick up the slack of 2 people. I even tried requesting a transfer to a less physically demanding department, a desperate last-ditch effort, but John just stared at me blankly, then shrugged and mumbled something about staffing levels. I swear. The man thought his job was just to breathe loudly in his office. When my last day finally rolled around, it felt like escaping a prison. I literally skipped out of there, said my goodbyes to the few decent colleagues, and dove headfirst into my new job, which thankfully involved far less risk of grievous bodily harm. I felt free, rejuvenated, but a tiny, nagging voice in the back of my mind whispered, "John's not done with you yet." And wouldn't you know it, that very evening my phone rang. It was John. "Jace, where are you? We're swamped. Get down here." I actually laughed. "John, I quit. My last day was today. I don't work there anymore." He paused, then went, "Oh, right. But can you just come in for a few hours? We really need you." The absolute audacity. I explained again slowly that I had a new job and wasn't coming back. He didn't seem to grasp it, so I had to repeat myself a few more times before he finally, grudgingly, hung up. I figured that was the end of it. Nope. A few days later, I was in a different part of town, minding my own business, grabbing some groceries at another branch of the same supermarket chain. I was halfway down the biscuit aisle, blissfully unaware, when I heard a familiar, booming voice. "Jace. What are you doing loitering around here? Get over to checkout 5, there's a spill." My heart sank. It was John. He was apparently doing a regional visit or something equally pointless. He strode towards me, his face a picture of indignant fury, like I was purposefully avoiding my duties. A few customers stopped, staring. "John," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "I don't work here. Not here, not at your store, not anywhere for this company. I quit." He actually scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous, you're clearly still in uniform." "Oh." He looked down at my simple gray t-shirt and jeans, a far cry from the store's polo shirt. His face went a shade of puce that probably matched the discounted pork chops. "Well, you should be working, we need staff." "With all due respect, John," I replied, a smirk finally breaking through, "that's not my problem anymore. Maybe try hiring someone, or, being a decent manager so people don't quit." I left him spluttering in the biscuit aisle, a few onlookers openly chuckling. It was glorious, pure, unadulterated satisfaction. It was a tough 4 years, and John was definitely a piece of work, but I learned a lot. Mostly that standing up for yourself, even when it means making a big leap, is always worth it. And also that some people are just fundamentally incapable of basic human decency, and it's not your job to fix them. So yeah, that's my story about finally getting to tell an incompetent manager to his face in public that I don't work here anymore. Hope it made you chuckle. Life throws curveballs, but sometimes those curveballs bounce right off your forehead and hit your old boss square in the face. Later.
Liking the vibe so far? Hit that subscribe button and stick around, the next story's even better.
You ever just want to enjoy a simple trip to the store, grab what you need and get out? Yeah, me too. But sometimes the universe has other plans. Plans that involve a brand new 5-month-old German Shepherd puppy, a sudden need for industrial-sized bags of chow, and a woman who truly, deeply believed she was entitled to absolutely everything. My niece had just adopted the cutest fluffball you ever did see, and I was on puppy duty for supplies. Leash, toys, treats, and of course, enough food to keep a small horse fed. I was cruising down the pet food aisle, humming a little tune, when a sound ripped through the otherwise peaceful hum of the store. It wasn't just talking, it was shrieking. Turning the corner, I was met with a scene straight out of an r/IDontWorkHereLady classic. A woman, let's call her Karen, with a face so red it looked like it might spontaneously combust, was absolutely laying into a young store employee. He looked barely old enough to shave, and his shoulders were slumped under the weight of her vitriol. I couldn't quite catch the specifics, but words like unacceptable, manager, and my rights were definitely being thrown around like confetti at a particularly angry parade. She was gesturing wildly at a slightly dented bag of kibble, demanding a full refund and a free replacement, despite not having a receipt. The poor kid was trying to explain store policy, clearly overwhelmed. That's when it happened. Karen's beady eyes, darting around for a higher authority, landed squarely on me. I must have looked important, or maybe just had a really stern shopping list, because in her mind I was clearly the top dog. Finally, she bellowed, pointing a manicured finger right at me. Someone in charge, you manager, need to discipline this insubordinate employee immediately. He's refusing to help a paying customer. A mischievous thought, quick as a German shepherd's pounce, sprang into my head. The poor kid looked like he was about to cry, and Karen was only gaining momentum. Someone needed to put a stop to this. Madam, I said, my voice dropping to a low, authoritative tone I usually reserved for misbehaving nephews. I'll handle this, young man, a word with you. The employee's eyes widened, a flicker of pure panic crossing his face. He probably thought I was the actual manager and he was about to be fired. I motioned him away from the still ranting Karen, who seemed momentarily satisfied that her grievances were being addressed. As we walked a safe distance, I kept my back to Karen, giving her a grand show of disciplinary action. Hey, I whispered to the kid, you're doing great, she's crazy, just keep following policy. Don't worry, I'm not really the manager. Just trying to get her off your back. His eyes went from panic to bewildered relief. Oh my God, thank you, she's been going on for 20 minutes about a dented bag. I gave him a quick, encouraging nod. Go take 5 or stock shelves at the other end of the store. I'll make sure she doesn't follow. He practically sprinted away, and I felt a surge of satisfaction. I continued my shopping, picking up the massive bag of puppy chow, some squeaky toys, and a mountain of dental sticks, feeling pretty pleased with my impromptu de-escalation skills. My cart was overflowing by the time I headed to the checkout. I was just handing over my items to the cashier when a familiar, grating voice pierced the air. There she is. Karen, who apparently had a homing beacon for people she'd previously harassed, was practically vibrating with indignation. She stormed up to the counter, her eyes locked on me. I knew it, you were giving her a discount. You were clearly colluding with that insolent employee earlier, and now you're trying to sneak off with your own purchases after giving yourself a deal. The cashier, a sweet young woman with a tired smile, looked at me with utter confusion. Just then, the store manager, a harried-looking man, walked over, drawn by Karen's increasingly shrill accusations. Ma'am, is there a problem here? He asked, rubbing his temples. Karen rounded on him. Yes, your manager who isn't a manager here, she jabbed a finger at me again, just gave herself a discount after I saw her colluding with that rude boy earlier. They're clearly friends. The manager looked at me, then at the cashier, then back at me. I don't recognize her, he said to Karen, a puzzled frown on his face. He turned to me. Ma'am, do you know this woman? Never seen her in my life, I said, straight-faced, suppressing a giggle that was threatening to burst out. Don't lie, Karen shrieked. You were just telling off that employee, the one who refused to help me. Just then, the young employee I disciplined earlier happened to walk past the register, carrying a stack of neatly folded towels. The manager's eyes lit up. Wait a minute, did you have an interaction with this lady earlier? Is she the manager you were talking to? He asked, pointing at me. The employee, bless his heart, immediately caught on. He looked at me, then at Karen, and then feigned total bewilderment. No, sir, I've never seen her before. And I certainly haven't seen this lady either, he said, gesturing vaguely at Karen, until just now making all this noise. The manager's expression shifted from confusion to dawning realization. He looked at Karen, who was now sputtering, trying to piece together her rapidly crumbling narrative. Ma'am, he said, his voice firm, it seems there's been a misunderstanding. This woman is a customer just like you. And my employee clearly doesn't know either of you. He turned to the employee. You back to work, thanks. The kid scurried off, a quick, triumphant wink thrown my way. Karen's face went from furious red to a pale, blotchy white. But she was the manager, she told you off. She stammered, pointing at me again, her accusations losing all their bite. I finally let a small, smug smile spread across my face. Seems like you were the one making a mistake, dear, I said, a touch of sweet venom in my voice. The manager sighed, a deep, world-weary sound. Ma'am, he said to Karen, his patience clearly evaporated, I think it's time for you to leave. If you don't, I'll have to call security. Karen opened her mouth, probably to launch another tirade, but the manager pulled out his phone. That did it. Her mouth snapped shut and she stomped out of the store, muttering under her breath about unprofessionalism and liars. The manager turned to me, a sheepish grin replacing his frown. Ma'am, I am so sorry about that. Thank you for handling that situation. He even chuckled a little. Please have a nice day, and thank you for shopping with us. I paid for my items, a wide, genuine grin on my face. Walking out, I actually saw a security guard ushering a still grumbling Karen towards her car. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. My niece's puppy was going to love this story, almost as much as I loved sticking it to an entitled Karen. It just goes to show, sometimes, all it takes is a little quick thinking and a bit of playful mischief to turn a frustrating situation into an unforgettable tale. And who knows, maybe I will become a regular at that store. I've got a feeling there are more wild Karens lurking in those aisles, just waiting for their own manager who isn't a manager moment. Thanks for listening, r/IDontWorkHereLady. Stay vigilant and keep those stories coming.
Ever have one of those moments where someone just assumes you're there to serve them, then physically touches you to demand service? Yeah, that happened. And let me tell you, this dude bro learned a very public lesson last weekend at a busy Chinese restaurant. The place was buzzing, a symphony of clattering plates, lively chatter, and the delicious aroma of soy sauce and ginger. Our protagonist, let's call her May, was weaving through the crowded tables in a bright blue sunflower dress, heading for the sanctuary of the ladies' room. She was just about to clear a particularly boisterous table of what can only be described as textbook dude bros when it happened. Hey, over here, a loud voice boomed, cutting through the general din. May, focused on her mission, barely registered it, assuming it was for one of the actual servers she'd just passed. She kept walking. Big mistake, apparently. Before she could take another step, a hand shot out and grabbed her arm. Not a polite tap, but a firm, possessive grip that stopped her dead. May's head snapped around, her eyes narrowing as she faced the offender, a beefy guy with a baseball cap turned backward, a smirk on his face. We need more water like 5 minutes ago, he grumbled, shaking her arm slightly for emphasis. Seriously, can you get on that? For a split second, May was so stunned she couldn't speak. Her fight-or-flight response had a momentary malfunction, stuck somewhere between punch this guy and what the hell just happened. She yanked her arm free, her voice dangerously calm, barely a whisper over the restaurant noise. Excuse me. The dude bro, oblivious to the storm brewing, leaned back in his chair. Look, I said, we need more water. You look like you work here, so just go get it. He even gestured with a dismissive flick of his wrist. His buddies at the table snickered, clearly enjoying his display of entitlement. That was it. The line wasn't just crossed. It was trampled, stomped on, and then set on fire. May took a deep breath, her eyes locking onto his. Oh, really? She purred, her voice gaining a surprising clarity. And pray tell, what exactly about me looks like I work here? He stuttered, caught off guard by her calm but challenging tone. Oh, well, look like a good worker. He finished lamely, his smirk faltering as his friends started muttering amongst themselves, a few even trying to stifle snorts of laughter. May wasn't done, not by a long shot. She stepped closer to their table, her gaze sweeping over the dude bro and his suddenly less amused friends. Let me make this crystal clear for you, she enunciated, each word a crisp, sharp jab. I haven't cleared a single plate, taken an order, or even thought about refilling a glass since I walked into this restaurant. I am a customer just like you. She paused for effect, letting that sink in. And you, sir, will never assume a service worker's role again, and you will definitely never grab a stranger like that again. The guy's face went from confident to confused, then to a deep, mortified crimson. His friends were no longer stifling their laughter. They were openly cackling, elbowing him, and making exaggerated ooh-ooh sounds. Dude, you just got owned. One of them choked out between guffaws. She totally fried you. May gave him one last, withering look, then turned on her heel and continued her walk to the bathroom, leaving a visibly squirming, red-faced dude bro in her wake. The rest of his dinner was clearly uncomfortable, punctuated by his friend's relentless teasing. When the bill came, he practically threw money onto the table and bolted, leaving them to finish their beer and continue their merciless dissection of his epic fail. As for May, she returned to her own table, a quiet, satisfied smile playing on her lips. Sometimes, you just gotta put them in their place.
Click here for another great one, you won't regret it.